they were intended already to arrest me, but there's nothing I could have said or done. No one was listening to me that night. No one was listening to me. I told them over and over, my friend, blah blah blah. No one was listening to me. No one did, and I heard several times that night, I'm only doing what I've been told to do. So that came from above. They were my guys. I was there for a couple of years. Yeah, I know them, and they knew me. That's why I didn't understand why they weren't at least give me a shot. I had, but yeah, they didn't seem to care about any of that.
Chad, what is
Hey,
going on, my friend?
Oh, this is awesome, bro. I appreciate you guys being here. Andy, what's up, man?
hey, it's good to see you, Chad and Ernie. So can't think of a better way to start the weekend.
Chad, I'm looking forward to seeing you next month. We'll be speaking together in Pennsylvania, up
Yeah.
in State College. So excellent. Chief's going to be doing some work in Connecticut with me, so I'm super excited about that. And we're here, of course, to talk about a couple of books that were just released by the both of us. So I think we've all been busy in our own way, but all in a way that's productive, and I think that can add value and benefit to those that we're trying to reach.
It's my third book, and it's a different kind of book, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. But it's a different kind of book that you've ever read when it comes to policing. So I'm ready to dig into it if you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, when we started planning this show, it was like there really wasn't necessarily a promote a book kind of thing. It was like tell your story. But then I guess a year ago we talked, and it was, well, we're not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. You said, there's a lot of stuff I have to shake out, which I totally understood. And then it just kind of happened quickly here now. So now that the book is released, Ernie's got a book that came out last week, right, buddy? Like the same time. So, or this week, right? Or last
Yeah,
week.
Sunday. We released Sunday. Unbeknownst to us, I didn't know it was going to come out that quick. It did, and we had a great release.
Yeah, #1 bestseller, right? On new bestseller for
Well, it got number one. Hey man, I'll take bestseller any day, but it got #1 new release, and we climbed up to #6 bestseller so far. So hopefully those that hear this podcast would take some interest in it and think about a way to support law enforcement. Get you a copy and let's push that baby to #1 and help this. Really, what we try to do is help the development of a career path of somebody that wants to be in law enforcement.
Yeah, and if somebody watching this that like never heard of you or Andy or me or never watched the show, or just coming in there's like curiously, like this is in law enforcement officer wellness leadership. Like this is the space we all live in. This is the area that we're trying to advocate for, push through for, whether it's better organizational culture, higher level of leaderships, more engaging officer wellness. That's like where we're all working and pushing, and we find ourselves pushing each other's missions and supporting each other, even though we're always sometimes doing different things. That's the power of podcasting and these sort of missions. So it's like, we'll talk about your books at the end and really get into the detail of it, but that'll be in the comments too. So people are watching like, guys writing books left and right. I get it. It's very noisy out there, but for us, I can only speak for us, we're very interested in writing things that challenge the status quo, that open the consciousness of our profession. We're not writing, hey, if you want to be great DUI arrest officer, here's the process you need to do. That's a different training for different people. We're really trying to push the narrative on what is acceptable, what is not, and then call out things that are unhealthy, and then also piggyback that with solutions that we think could be valuable, and acknowledging we don't have all the answers. So I'm proud to be working with you guys on this. All right, Andy, dude, your story, man. I remember talking to Ernie. I don't remember what this was, brother. Was this last year or 20, even 2 years?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you exactly.
Yeah.
It's a day that will live in infamy, man. For me, I was on the road getting ready to speak at an event, and you sent me a text message, and you asked me to go, hey, have you checked on Chief Andy? And I'm like, I haven't talked to him, in a few weeks. Why? What's up? And then you sent me, it was like a news link saying, hey, man, it looks like there's some kind of trouble down there where he was working. I don't know what's going on. And I read the news article, and I'm like, man, right away, something's not right.
Right.
Like, dude, come on. Like, I'm reading this and then I'm thinking, okay, I was there. I know what that culture is like. Something's not right. So I tried reaching out to Chief and I couldn't get a hold of him for 3 days. And it wasn't until a mutual friend of ours said, hey, Chief got his phone taken away and here's a new number if you could reach out to him. And I did. And Chief responded right away, man, started filling me in on kind of what was going on. And man, it was one of those like, I cannot believe this. Like, I've been doing this a long time. And there's some things that you're like, wow, I never saw that coming. But then there's some things that that there's a lot more to the story than what's being told. And I'm so glad that the three of us have been close over the years and we're able to share with each other when things like this happen.
Yeah, for sure. And we come to each other's aid. We rally behind each other. And it's funny, like it's almost a surreal feeling when you build a relationship with somebody who's so dedicated to public service, whether it's the military, law enforcement, municipal, city management, like whatever that hat is. And when you develop a relationship with somebody that you behind the scenes, you know them and you see their heart for service and how much they care and sacrifice. And then as a career law enforcement officer, when you read an article that guy had handcuffs slapped on his wrist, it just, and you know the character of that person, it freezes you for a second. You're like, what the heck is going on? So Andy, brother, like segue us, man. Like tell us what happened, and I don't even know all the details, so I'm excited and heartbroken equally to hear like what the shit you've been through and how man, yeah. Let's have it.
Well, I appreciate the time and being able to share my story. I'll tell you, at first, and Ernie talked about it just a little bit, people only heard one side of the story, which is always the case, right? In the media and everywhere else. I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't speak on my own behalf. And that frustrated me because I'm used to speaking up for myself. And so I couldn't speak. And so whatever the narrative that was out there, and that hurt me, right? Because people think that I actually called 911, and I'll get into it here in a little bit, and and did that on purpose and intentionally and all that kind of stuff, which is nothing could be farther from the truth. But I didn't have a chance to speak on my own behalf, and finally, about a couple of months ago, I said, okay. I think it's time to go ahead and tell my story because there's some legal stuff going on as well. But you know what? Here's what I believe, and I said, the truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. So whether I'm, in court in a civil case talking about this or anywhere else, it's not going to hurt because everything that I say is the truth. And so that's all. So that's why I decided to go ahead and write the book. It was time, and I'm glad I did it. And listen, I put myself out there. I'm vulnerable here. I wanted to make sure people. The thing about this book is that they are with me literally as this is happening, and people have told me that have read some or most of the book. They're like, "Wow, I feel like I'm right there with you while this is happening," and that's what I wanted. I wanted them to experience or at least try to feel what I felt that night, and it was the worst night of my life, and no comparison. But that was the gist of the book. And listen, we talked. I think I heard Ernie talk a little bit about this, about or you did, Chad, talking about making this profession better. We have poured our hearts into it, and I'll tell you, both things can be true. We can love our profession, but we can also not like some of the things that are happening in our profession. And because we love the profession, we should be able to call out unhealthy behavior and in order to make it better. And I hope that resonates with people.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Chad, I'll tell you this. Chief shared a couple of the early chapters with me, and I'm gonna show my age here for a minute. But every time that you would watch a sitcom in the past, you'd have to wait a week, for that next episode to come out, and you're like, damn, man, like I don't want to wait a week. Nowadays you can stream everything in 6 hours on Netflix.
My kid watched Cobra Kai in an entire weekend, like the entire
season. Yeah. Don't do that, man. I want you to see you hurt yourself, man, trying to do something. But yeah, Chief would send me, and I'm like, I was literally on the edge of my seat, literally going, man, send me the next chapter, please.
Hmm.
Like, I got to know what happens. And I think the
Yeah.
readers are going to feel the same way because, first of all, it's a shock factor. You're not going to believe what you're about to. You're like, you got to be kidding me. But I'll say this, and I stand with Andy, with Chief, because I know this man's character. Now, prove me wrong, and that's fine. But until you do, I know his heart. I know how he has run police agents. He's been a police chief 3 different times. Like, come on. And I have seen the fairness of how he treats others. Now, there's always going to be people that are going to be accountable for their actions, and I've seen him hold people accountable, but in a manner in which is fair and which is a life lesson. And I only wish he would have been afforded that opportunity that night that this happened.
Hmm. It's
Well, I
crazy.
appreciate that. And go ahead. Go
No,
ahead,
go ahead,
Chad.
Andy. Go ahead, man.
No. I appreciate that, Ernie. That was the whole purpose of the book, in order so that we can learn from it. It's not about. This is not about trying to convince you or the audience of my innocence. I can't do that. You think what you think, and I'm unable to do that. Now, all I do is present from my side what happened, and I have receipts for everything that I talk about in the book. So I just didn't make stuff up, and I think this happened or whatever. No, I mean everything is can be backed up. But again, it was too good not to write about what happened because there's so many teachable moments. And I've always stressed critical thinking is our best friend if we do it and think about our decisions bigger than just the violation. And I think this has plenty of teachable moments, and that's the reason I wrote this. And I want people to learn from it. Let's use my experience as something hopefully positive, and people can learn from it.
Andy. So I'm sure, like, if you dissect your book, and I have it in order, it's going to be here today, and I just wish I would have had it at a time to read beforehand. But like, I'm excited to read it based on what Ernie's saying. Like, I love those stories where you're on that ride, because I feel like as a reader myself, when I can emotionally relate to the story and the character, I put myself. That's how I read things. I put myself in their
Yeah.
shoes, and then I think, how would I have reacted, or what lessons could I have learned from this? And so I do enjoy those stories, and I'm sure you're going to, tell us today, like the hard part to this. But when you look back at where it could have started at, and I'm sure you could talk about this for hours and hours, like when you think about your incident, I'm sure it was before that night. Like, where did you think it started from? Like, if you have a time period.
Well, it is bigger than just what happened that night. And what I did here in the book is dissect that and peel back the layers of that onion as we hear sometimes. And because we need to understand what happens out here affects what happens here. So it's not just what happens when officers make decisions. It's bigger than that. And so when this happened for me, I mean, I had history here in this city. A year prior, I had a fallout with the political power structure here. I went against the grain, but I went against the grain only because I was concerned about some things, and all I was doing is hoping to better the city, do make better decisions on budget and that kind of thing. Well, what I didn't know, the landmines were don't question anything. Things are away, are this way for a reason. So shut the hell up and just go take care of the people. I mean, the employees, and kind of, for lack of a better word, make sure they're playing in the sandbox. Everybody's playing well together. And so there was that rift between me and the political structure, and it became bigger than what it should have. And that was part of my ouster about a year and a half before this happened. But so there was history already, and then I ran for mayor. Uh, oh man, you
I'm
can't
sure that
make
was going
this
to go
up.
well.
You can't make this up. I ran for mayor in a town of 90,000 people, and I'll tell you, I brought out a lot of the issues that were going on in the city. I was no longer part of the city. But people asked me to run, and I was like, "What the hell? I'm not doing anything else. Let me run." Woo, man, that's a contact sport down here. And so I I also got a glimpse of what that looks like. And when you go against the political power players here, you better be ready because they're going to come after you, and they certainly did.
Wow.
But again, I think all of that created, listen, I'm probably not the favorite of some of these, political players down here because I have gone against and shown the light on some of the things. But I did it for the right reason. I'm not just doing it to raise hell. I'm doing it to make our city better. But it's a different world down here. So there's some things that happened before this night that contributed to what happened. And I think that's important because there's always a bigger story.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were a marked man? Like you said, it went years earlier. Like, and just to put a little context, you were in the military, right? Like Air Force Reserve, Army Reserve.
Yeah.
Police came up through this. The police department rose through the ranks, became the police chief of one area. Then you went to another community. So, like, you've already had a reputation. You've already had that credibility established. So, do you feel that when you show up with that sort of acumen and people know, hey, Andy's here for the right reasons, he's going to call things out. Do you think that already creates like an agita amongst leaders, or it still takes you to have to show them that you're willing to speak up for them that get your attention?
Oh, for sure. In the book, I talk about being a contrarian. And I think that's what we are, contrarians, but it's not a negative thing. It's a good thing. All we do is speak up for things that we believe are right. It's that person in the meeting that actually questions why we're doing stuff for the right reason. Most of the time, you go to meetings, right? And everybody's quiet. And the leader says, anybody have any questions? Is everybody okay? And everybody's like, yeah, well, everything is fantastic. And then when they step out of the meeting in their small groups, they're saying, what the hell is he thinking? That is crazy. That leader, that boss is crazy. But they didn't have the guts to say anything in the meeting. So a contrarian, the life of a contrarian is tough because you're going to get some some grief. But if we don't have them, change doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's what I am.
wow.
I consider myself a contrarian. I think you guys are too, because we're trying to raise the level of our profession. And we have
Yeah.
to be. We have to question certain things in order to get there.
And I think we've all experienced, and I've experienced it. I've talked about this in other podcasts, and obviously this is Andy's story. That when you start to push back in that, oh my god, like the
Yeah.
insecurities, the arrows in the back, the egos that come after you, and you're like, I'm just trying to do the right thing. Well, they don't want
That's
you to
it.
do the right thing. They don't want you to put light on the darkness. They want to just keep it the way it is. And you're like, well, I don't want
Yeah.
it to be that way. It needs to be better. Yeah, like you said, you got to be prepared to take the arrows.
Chad, and I'll say this real quick and then let Andy. Really want him to talk about his story. But Andy has a reputation, Chief Andy has a reputation of being brought in to police agencies that are struggling and getting them back on track. A proven record, has done this at 3 different agencies. The last agency he was at, he actually brought me in to train them in some mental health training, and his agency won the #1 mental health unit in the entire state of Texas
Wow.
because he was a contrarian, did opposite of what other people said he should do with manpower, took the manpower, said, let's redefine what safety is here in this community, no longer look at it as the absence of crime, but the presence of well-being, and let's put something in place to serve this community. And in doing so, his department was recognized as the #1 agency in Texas for their mental health unit. So that's setting the stage, right, of who he is, but then the transition into politics and
Yeah.
how quickly that can go wrong.
Wow. Yeah, and
It did. And, it's important to note that, and I think I wrote about it in the book, I was the first external chief to be hired in this agency in over 50 years.
wow.
So imagine the internal baggage that has built up throughout those decades. And when I came in, people weren't talking to each other. There was divisiveness. There were cliques. There were, people being stabbed in the back, not literally, but it was an ugly situation. And finally, they said, leadership here said, I think we need somebody from the outside. Because after 50 years of this, I think it's it's time to bring somebody else with some new ideas and a fresh perspective. But with that, man, I'll tell you, all that baggage was still there. And it's tough. It's a hard thing to take over an organization with that much baggage I enjoy it. I thrive on that, but it's freaking hard, and I have the scars to prove it. No doubt about it. Hey, do you remember Rambo when they took
Yeah.
off his when they were showering him? They see all those scars that he had in the back. That's
He's
me. I'm
like
like,
hanging
ah,
up. Yeah, yeah.
well, that's yeah. I have all those scars from taking over unhealthy organizations, but it's
Oh
worth it.
man.
Somebody's got to do it, man. So, but
Somebody's
you're
got
gonna
to
get
do it.
beat up
You're
a
right.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody's got to do it. You're right. And that's that contrarian. It's like you're a hardworking, service oriented person who's willing to challenge the status quo. And I just wish our society can get to a place, and I know why it's like this, when this is a different discussion for a different day about politics, but I wish our country and society could get back to the way it used to be, where we celebrate people like you. We want people like you to lead us, to
uh,
represent us, because you are the best of us. You have the most morals of us,
well,
for human sakes. I know we're all kind of spiritual here, but and now we're in a world where like
yeah.
the best amongst us, or most of our elected officials are not the best amongst us. And it's just created this messy time. So I think that's what we're working through now. So Andy, arrested, man. Like when you sent me the cover for the book and it said arrested, now you look at me different. I was just like, damn,
Uh,
that is such a powerful title.
all I can do is laugh to keep from crying anymore, right? So, you know, yeah, it's a hell of a title, right? Arrested. You already look at me different, and the reason I named it that, or I titled that, because it's true. I don't even have to tell you why I was arrested. I can just tell you, man, I was arrested, and all of a sudden, you will look at me a little bit different. Like, what the hell? Like, what did he do, or what? It's just different. And so being able to get past that initial obstacle, because you're already thinking, or most people are thinking bad of me. Here's the cover of that. And the mirror displays obviously a shattered, a lot of things shattered in my life that night. But again, right, you have to get past the initial thought where people are like, what the hell did Andy do, right? Or whatever that is. And so until now, I'm able to tell my story, but that's why I named it that. And I'll tell you, it's not just about what happened that night. It's about what I learned after the case that contributed to what happened that night. I'm telling you, there's some things in there that are going to blow you
All right,
away.
so let's do this, because I think for you to tell the story, I mean, people can read the book to get the nitty gritty details. For A to B, B to C, C to D. I don't think that's unless you really want to get into that. Would you be able to get just an overview? Because I really want to get to like what you found out. I think that is fascinating. Again, like you telling the story about, you can share whatever you want. Obviously, you were arrested and there was an incident that
Yeah,
happened. Whatever you want to share, but I really would love to hear also like what are the stuff you
yeah,
found out, because that enlightenment for all of us is a very powerful place.
sure. What I found was that this was a systemic failure in every step of this incident, from the first inadvertent text that 911 received, all the way through to filing the case and not, and my arrest and my booking and all those things that happened. There was every step of the way, there were failures. And I'll start from the very beginning. By the way, I didn't use any names here. I didn't do this to be malicious or to, for revenge or anything like that. I didn't use real names. It's not about bashing the officers and all that. I love officers, and I don't have any ill feelings towards them. It happened. It happened. This stuff happens in policing, and so I'm past that. But I'll give an example. In an inadvertent text, I thought I was texting my friend uh, Vic, and we have a sense of humor that is probably, I mean, it's way out there, okay? But it's only him and I, right? We understand each other. So a conversation I would have with him, I probably would not have with, 99% of the world, because we know each other at a level that we can trust each other. And yeah, sometimes it's dark humor. Sometimes I love to laugh about anything. But so I thought it was just real quick. I thought it was a joke from a friend, because I sent him a text of a TikTok promoting my new book at the time that was going to come out 5 days, about a week after this happened. And so I was excited about it, my second book. And so I sent it to him. And then I get back something like 911 dialogue closed. And I'm like, well, shit, I didn't even know the dialogue was open. Just 911 dialogue closed. And I thought, and it was about 10 o'clock at night already. I was already fixing to go to bed. And so I wasn't thinking too much into this. So I said, okay, Vic, what do you have? So I cut and pasted 911 dialogue close and I sent it back to him. And then he sent it back to me again. And I'm like, all right, you want to play? I'll play with you. I'll play along. And we went back and forth. And I said some crazy stuff. But again, right, I felt like, okay, he's going to act like a dispatcher. Okay, I'll act like a citizen. And so he would ask me, what's your emergency? And I won't say it here, it's in the book, but I said something funny or I thought was funny, and I thought it would make him laugh. Little did I know that it was a dispatcher at 911 that was responding to me, and we were having this text thread back and forth. I sent a few other TikTok links to promote my book just to kind of change it up. But my point of all this is that the dispatcher didn't open any of the TikToks, and per policy, she's supposed to perform a callback. And so, if she would have called me back, and I call her dispatcher disaster in the book, but if she would have called me back, per policy, this thing would have been avoided because I would have been like, what the hell? I said, 911. I would have been like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. I had no idea this was going to you. So I would have apologized profusely because they didn't have to read what I was, putting out to my friend, and also for wasting their time, not intentionally, but I just didn't know. So I would have appreciated them calling me and letting me know so I can stop that. But because I didn't know, so she failed to call me back and her supervisor knew about it. They did nothing, and she went against policy in, as far as calling me back and all those things that were important. So here's why this is important. She assumed all of the information that she gathered from our conversation, which I thought was somebody else. She assumed some things, so whatever she assumed, she passed on to the sergeant, the on-duty sergeant, and the officers, which was already false. So they're thinking I'm having this, you know, there's some humor in there that's just for guys. But so they're thinking I'm just being a whatever. And they show up to my house, and the sergeant actually says, even before arriving to my house, and I got it on audio because I got all this evidence. And he says, go ahead and make the arrest if he's at home, without knowing anything else other than what this dispatcher assumed was happening. So I didn't know it at the time, but when they arrived at my house, I didn't know why they were there. I came outside and I thought, I didn't have any reason to hide or I didn't even know why they were there. They told me it was a 911 call, and I was like, well, I didn't call you guys. Maybe my neighbor? No, it was a text. I said, okay, so do you mind looking at my phone? I mean, yeah. So I went inside and got my phone, and I even gave it to the officer. I said, hey, figure it out. Hopefully you can figure it out. I don't know what you're talking about. And then it clicked. Oh shit, Vic, my friend, what the hell? I said, hold on. I was texting my friend Vic, and I thought it was him, and I thought we were joking or whatever. You're telling me this went to 911? Oh shit. I said, no, that's what happened, man. Shit. I didn't know that. And they had already in their mind that they were going to arrest me. So he started looking at the text threads, right? And he was like, but why did you say this? And I said, well, again, right? It was my friend Vic. I'm joking around. I thought it was funny because I thought it was him. I didn't know it was 911. Okay. What about this? And then finally, the hairs in the back of my neck stood up and said, and I thought, okay, these guys don't have my best interest. Something is going on here because in my world, in the policing world, if I get this call, I go, hey, did you know you were texting 911? Shit, I didn't know. Okay, hey, don't do that anymore because we're getting it at 911. Now, if he does it again or she does it again, that's different. But if they didn't know, they didn't know. Okay, don't do it again. Let's stop that. And pretty simple call in my world, but they were intended. all ready to arrest me, but there's nothing I could have said or done. No one was listening to me that night. No one was listening to me. I told them over and over, my friend, blah blah blah. No one was listening to me. No one did, and I heard several times that night, I'm only doing what I've been told to do. So that came from above
Andy, real quick, let me
them
interject.
that night.
Did you know these cops personally? Did you recognize them?
Yeah, yeah, they were my guys. I was there for a couple of years. Yeah, I know them, and they knew me. That's why I didn't understand why they weren't at least give me a shot. I had, but yeah, they didn't seem to care about any of that. And so I was like, I mean, what do you want me to do? I said, so anyway, the hair stood up in the back of my uh, neck, and I said, okay, guys, I'm I'm good. Cut the bullshit, right? Like I'm gonna go back inside. Thank you. I'm okay, right? And so I grabbed my phone back because I gave him consent. So I just grabbed it back. I said, thank you guys. I'm gonna go inside. And that's when all hell broke loose. I was only a few feet, with it from my front door. And so I turned around and started walking. And next thing I knew, someone grabbed my hand, and it startled me. It surprised me. Like, what the hell? Like, I'm just going back inside my home. And they put their hands on me. And we all know that when officers put hands on someone, um, someone's going to jail. So one of the chapters in the book is called "I Didn't Resist. They needed me to. They just needed me to, in order to fit the narrative for this arrest." And it became about winning that night for them. It became about winning, meaning if for some reason they let me go and didn't arrest me, they would have felt they were wrong, and they didn't want to be, they didn't want the other officers to think that they were, you know, doing the wrong thing, whatever. So it became about winning, and so they said and did whatever it took in order to fit the narrative that they were saying. That I resisted, that I even struck them, and so one of the chapters is Chuck Norris ain't got shit on me because the way they must have described me was like a Chuck Norris, Walker Texas Ranger, where I told one guy, "Hey, who wants to dance?" And I joke about it in the book. Who's first? Boom, roundhouse kick and all. They made it sound like I was Chuck Norris, and I sped away in my Dodge Ram with the theme music, but it was nothing like that at all, and that's why I named it that. But
Andy, the truth
I
probably was, and I wasn't there. You were probably scared, right? You were confused. You were scared. You didn't know what was going on, and
well,
they took advantage of that.
Well, I was holding on to my front door, and I'm like, guys, you cannot come inside my house, dude. You cannot. What are y'all doing? And finally, one of them said, "You're being detained." And I'm like, "Being detained? And what? In my house? What are y'all doing?" And but then they body slammed me down on the driveway, and one of the officers punched me a few times. But whatever the case, man, it happens. Policing is ugly at times. We all get that, man. But and I'll be honest, it could have ended right there, and I wouldn't have complained or anything. I'm not that kind of guy. But we could have had a conversation about it, be done with it, and move on. But yeah, it just it got worse and worse. So get this, I'm being booked in. Moving a little bit forward. I'm being booked in, and all of a sudden, I'm getting charged with 911 abuse, which I didn't do. It's knowingly and intentionally are the mental states that you have to prove on that. I certainly didn't do it intentionally. And then resisting arrest, and then get this, 2 felonies for striking an officer, right? 2 felonies, dude. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? I said, guys, this what are y'all doing, man? Like, they're charging me with 2 felonies? Are you serious? Like, what in the hell just happened? I was sitting on my bed ready to go to sleep, and 10 minutes later, I'm being slammed on the ground in front of my house, and now I'm being charged with not only 2 misdemeanors, which didn't happen, but 2 felonies. And it just got worse from there, man. I'm telling you, it was awful. They ended up not charging me with the 2 felonies, so that was a minor win that night, or maybe a bigger win. but the damage was already done, man. There's nothing I could say or do. I was in a cold cell. I want to talk about this real quick. I was in a cold cell for 15 hours, barefoot, with just a t-shirt and shorts to sleep in, and thank God that shirt actually stretched because it was so cold in there that I actually, put my arms in fetal position just so I can warm up a little bit. But my feet were cold, and it was awful for something I didn't do. But I didn't have a voice, man. I was done.
And Chad, let me say this for those that don't know. Like Andy wrote a book on procedural justice in a book called Excellence in Policing. That is a field guide manual on how law enforcement is supposed to interact with members of the community and do so in a way that promotes constitutional policing. That is what this country has been founded upon, right? Not this abuse of power. How many times, Chad, including yourself, have you responded to a 911 call to find out it was a kid playing on the phone?
Yeah.
Did you take that 8-year-old, 9-year-old to juvenile and book them to teach them a lesson? No. Hey, mom. Hey, dad. Heads up. Kid was playing on the phone. 911 call came in. Could you caution them about that and actually teach them? Use this as a teaching moment on what 911 is used for. I cannot. I have only in one time in 30-year career have I ever had to do an abusive 911 call, and they were extenuating circumstances with over 150 calls to 911. Now, come on. On the surface, just look at this, everybody. Look what's going on. Resisting arrest, assaulting a police officer. This man was their chief of police. This is.
So basically,
Read this book.
Read this book. A subject matter expert, exactly what the subject matter expert writes about in a book. I mean, it's like talking about. It's crazy.
Well, everything and yeah, everything that I've written about, and this is my excellence in policing. It's still people still like it. It's like 8 years old, but everything I talk about in those books, and I've preached around the country, and talking about treating people with dignity and respect, but also critically thinking about their decisions to look beyond the violation and look at the person and those kinds of things. Everything that I preached about was the exact opposite of what happened to me that night. So now I'm like, I really believe this more than any, because I experienced the other side, and that's my message now. I've experienced it. I know what citizens may think about us when we make bad decisions, and we need to be better.
How did that experience change you as a person?
Well, man, I'll tell you, it hurt me. It hurt me in a lot of ways, and these officers still probably don't have an idea of how bad they hurt me. Uh, I had 3 chief of police interviews that week, the week, a week of this when this happened. I was in the latter stages, and I was ready to go back and be a chief somewhere. I had Las Cruces, New Mexico, Kingsville, Texas, and Missouri City, outside of Houston. Pretty big agencies, Missouri City and Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I was in the latter stages. I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to that. Hey, let me get one of those, and I'm ready to move on. Let's go. Life turning around and all that. My new book was coming out that Friday, Changing the Beat, which is pretty much, builds on excellence in policing. I was excited. I had a lot of things to look forward to. Finally, right? I'm turning the corner on a rough year that I had before that. My dad died. I lost my career. I lost a long-term marriage. I had a lot of loss within that year. So I was ready to move forward and start something fresh. And when this happened, it changed everything. Obviously, I couldn't continue on with those processes. I couldn't. I had to bow out. There's no way I could have, even though I was innocent. Those were done. My book, I had to wait, and still, I haven't really promoted it like I should have, but because all this happened. But I had all that to look forward to, and these guys come to my house. That's what I talk about. Look at the person behind the violation, and try to understand that your decisions impact people, and many times unnecessarily. What are we doing here, guys? Why are we going and messing with people's lives unnecessarily when you don't have to? There are other options, and so that's part of the message. Like, stop just looking at the, you just have your blinders on. You're just looking at the violation. You're just looking at the penal code, whatever that is. We got to think bigger than that. That's not our job to just look at the, penal code. Our job is to look at everything and make the best decision for the community, not just for the officer. In other words, if I'm an officer, I say, oh, this is an easy arrest. Well, let me get me a mark, right, on my activity.
Yeah.
But the question is, how is this impacting community? How is this making the greater good safe? What does this impact? And a lot of times our arrests do have a positive impact on the community. But there are times when it doesn't. It makes no difference. You didn't do one thing to help your community by taking this action. And that's what I talk about, critically thinking about what you do and why you're doing it.
Yeah. So it sounds like this was personal, right? There was some sort of vindictiveness behind it. Like, what did you find out? Obviously, you were confused. You're caught off guard by the whole incident. Was it that night when you're sitting in the cell? Like, what thought process did you have? And like, when you started to put the pieces together?
Well, shoot, in that cell was awful. I was humiliated. I still didn't believe. I was in shock. And I have a good story in this book about an officer, and I called him Officer Humanity. Get this. He showed up at the house after all this happened, and my dogs were out. I love my dogs, and he showed up not to flex, not to do anything else, but to help. And he said, "Hey, you want me to get your dogs?" And I said, "Please bring them inside. They mean the world to me. I appreciate it." And then when I was in the cell, about an hour into it, here I am in the corner, all covered up, and he opens the door and he says, "Hey, Chief, would you like some socks?" And I'm like, so here I am. I'm like, I felt like a homeless guy, right? Seriously. And here I am. I was his chief. I'm sitting in the corner of a jail cell, and he's asking me if I want some socks because I'm barefoot. And I said, if there's some around there, if, somewhere easy, I'll take them, but don't worry, don't go out of your way, right? And little did I know, about an hour later, he came back and he says, "Hey, Chief, I have these socks. They were in a bundle." He says, "I have these socks. I got them from my locker, but they're clean, but they're used. Is that okay?" And I'm like, "Is that okay? Yeah, I'll take whatever, And man, I was so appreciative that he went above and beyond just to get me those socks. And I don't know if he still, I let him know how much I appreciate it, but he gave me the socks and it was a game changer. Now, here's what I found out about a month later, that he didn't get those socks from the locker. He called his wife at home at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, "Hey, can you bring me some socks? The chief is in here. He's barefoot." He must have said something like, "It's awful. I feel bad for him. Can you?" And his wife got up at 3 in the morning and brought some socks to the station, and he gave me those socks. And
He's
who
a real
does
one,
that?
man. That guy's a real one right there.
Hey, who does that? So I call him Officer Humanity in the book. That's exactly what he was doing, and he might have gotten in trouble for that. I really don't know, but he did the right thing in his mind and helped me, and it helped me a lot. But they're still officers. Officers are great people, man. They make great. They're good people. They want to do good. Sometimes we just get in our own way, and bad things happen. But I'll tell you that Officer Humanity is the highlight of what happened to me that night. And we need more Officer Humanities out there.
Yeah, wow. That guy, he's a real one, man. Those are the cops we need to
Yeah,
celebrate and build up and encourage, and it's to have that model behavior for others. Hey, that level of care is the most important thing. If you care really about the job you do and the people you serve, everything else will work itself out.
that's it.
So what are the
Yeah.
lessons you learned from all this? Like how long were you in the cell for
Well,
before you got out, before you posted bail?
I learned not to dabble in playing around on on text anymore, even if it's just joking. So don't bother, sending me something funny because I'm not going to respond to it. I'm so I'm in shock still, right? But I kid, but no, again, right? Let's learn from what happened. Listen, I was depressed after this. I took a hit financially and those things, and uh, it really messed with me emotionally, mentally, as you can imagine. It hurt my standing. I've worked all my career to earn a national reputation in policing. I've been on national boards. I've testified in front of the Senate on, on policing. Proud of that, and it was all taken away in one night. And so that really hurt me. It's still hurting me. I haven't been able to find a chief of police job because of it. So I stopped. It's just too hard to overcome. So, again, let's think about the impact of your decisions. And do you really need to make an arrest or enforce whatever that is at that time? Most cases, probably so. But there are times that it's just not worth it, and you're not doing anything to help the community. So again, it goes back to your mind. That's our greatest tool that we have, but we got to use it, and we got to use it critically.
Hey, Chief, let me ask you this. In the news recently, I have seen a lot of officers getting in trouble, right? Whether they're being arrested for DWI, family violence, whatever the case may be. And in times like that, you need support. So you need to have some support. But
Yeah.
even with friends and family supporting you, sometimes it's not enough. Could you talk about how your faith carried you through this incident?
Well, I mean, I've been a Christian most of my life, and listen, I'm going to tell you this. Uh, Sometimes I'm not the best example of that, but my faith is always with me. And so this was bigger than me just going to a therapist, which I go to anyway because I think it's good, and I hope officers around the country do it more because I think most of us need it, or all of us do. But my faith is what I had to cling on to, the hope that I have in God, right? To I have to believe that for some reason this happened. He allowed this to happen. I don't even know what that is yet. I'm thinking, but I don't want to speak for God, is that there's a message here that needs to be told. And because I went through that, I can tell that in a different way now. But my faith in God is what has kept me going, because I have to believe that God is with me and working behind the scenes and under. I'm not God. I don't know why this happened. I did question that to him. Why? What happened? What, how could this happen? And again, I can't speak for God, but I know that there's a reason this happened. I may never know what that is, but there's a reason this happened, and I believe that, and that's what keeps me going. Ultimately, that's what I think about. I pray every day, and I pray that people will be blessed by this message, and it keeps me going, and it has to, because without God, really, my life is empty. I have no hope, and so I'm not going to do that. I have God, Father God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, all those that I pray to every day, to help me get through the day. It's one day at a time, but things are better. I know He's with me, and I don't know if it's this book or whatever it is. Heck, I'm talking to you about it now, so it brought us together. So my faith is a big part of who I am, and who I will be moving forward. So thanks for Ernie for that, but you're absolutely right. My
Yeah.
faith has carried me.
Yeah, I ask because a lot of people question when things happen, and you just have to go back to what the scriptures say. It rains on the good and the bad. So
Yeah.
you can search for the answers, but at the end of the day, scriptures also tell us that He is the potter and we are the clay, and no matter what happens, He's always going to be right in what He wants to either create a beautiful vase or a vase or crumble it and start over. Right. So that's just where we have to trust. And in Chad, I want to jump ahead, but Andy, where are we at now in this? Like, what is going on now that some time has passed?
Well, healing has happened for sure. I was hurt at the beginning, and this is still hurt there, but the healing has. I'm way over here now. I'm not angry at the department. I'm not angry at even the officers. I'm not angry at even the political I'm not angry anymore. It's not. It doesn't make any sense for me to waste my energy on being angry. Something I can't control. It's done. So I've accepted that, and so I'm in a much better place. So again, my faith. and knowing that I'm doing things to help me get through this, I'm at a lot better place. I'm actually at peace for the most part. There are times when I go back and I'm like, dang, that really hurt me. But then I quickly go back to what I believe. And, I know God's with me. So I think I'm better for it, to be honest with you. I'm stronger for it. I can laugh about it. That's a big thing, right? Uh, but I laugh about it because I know that it can help people now. And that's what I'm hoping that this message does, that it helps people. If nothing else, hopefully it helps an officer out there to think differently about what they're doing.
Yeah,
Andy,
me and Chad were talking offline, and he asked a great question, like who polices the police when something like this happens? So what kind of recourse did you have?
I I didn't. I mean, I just didn't. Who polices the police? We need to police the police, each other. And I talk about a culture of fear in the organization, in the city. And it's a very real thing, retaliation and fear of the top leadership. And so when this happened to me, part of what happened afterwards is that even the investigative sergeant that looked at my case in the morning, he went to the chief and said, "Hey, chief, we don't have anything here, man. This is not a good arrest." And what he said was, "Keep him in there." And but I believe it had to do with his bosses, and there's that retaliation and real fear, and that's why I think he didn't do anything. He could have stepped up, but I get it. It could have been his job. It's that toxic. If he would have gone against the grain, but like I said in the book, not everybody can be a contrarian now. It's tough.
but
But
Andy, I'm going to push on that a little bit
yeah,
because I didn't know about that. So you're in the cell, and I'm just curious about this. You're in the cell block. There's you find out later there's conversation that the big wigs are like, I don't know if this is right or not, and they're like, just keep doubling down and doing it. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, and that's what
That's
happened.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, no. I mean, you have the
That's what
investigative.
lunatics do. That's what lunatics do.
Yeah, I mean, you know how many times as a chief, detectives came to me and said, "Hey, this is not a great arrest. Drop it right now. Let's not even.
100%. Yeah.
If you have to be creative and you have to stretch things, no. You drop it. Why are we putting that person through this unnecessarily?" So many times I was like, "Drop it. That's it. I wouldn't even ask more questions. If they're telling me this is not a good case, drop it. That's it. That simple."
And Chad, for those that are like, did he really say that? Let me tell you this. He did a podcast with a journalist when they made a stop on an 18-wheeler that at the beginning of the stop, they thought that they had a very good arrest for a chemical in there that was going to be used to make methamphetamines. All the initial indicators were there. The preemptive testing showed positive. Driver was arrested. Vehicle was impounded. It wasn't until the DEA came there, they did some further in-depth testing to say it was a false positive that was not a chemical used to make methamphetamine. It was something else. It was not illegal. Chief Andy went to the media and said, we need to get this out to the public, that we were wrong in what we did. We only went on what we knew at the time, which is understandable, but we need to own when we were wrong. He called the journalist. He did the podcast with the journalist, and he set the record straight with the community. So those that doubt what he's saying, go back in the analogs of history and pay attention to how this man has done things in the past.
Yeah, because if somebody doesn't know Andy, right, and most people probably, Andy's not a celebrity. He's a celebrity in our little culture, police world, but that's less than 1% of Americans raise their hand and take an oath to put a uniform on and get out in their community. That's less than 1% of us, out of over 300 million. So, but in our little community, he is heroic to us because of exactly what you said. And still, despite all that, somebody will listen to this and be like, that didn't happen that way or couldn't have happened that way. That's corruption. And we're trying to tell you through this story is there's a lot of corruption, not just in the federal government, but in local government as well. And sometimes it's actually more toxic in local government because those egos are able to persist and there's no one to call them out on it. And it just becomes this culture of love, fear, like you said, and toxicity. So,
wow, Chad, you seem like you've written a book about that.
I know.
Yeah. Man, we all have
some kind of trilogy or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those people keep getting, promoted. It's crazy.
Hey, I appreciate you guys letting me talk about what happened here. There's more to it. I hope people will buy the book. And it's not about sales. It's about getting the message out. But enough about me. I really want to know more about Ernie's new book, and hope maybe we can shift to your new book. And I find it pretty fascinating that you wrote a book on even before becoming a police officer and already planting the seeds before. And I think that's pretty powerful. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ernie?
Sure, Andy. Thanks. Thank you both for the platform and segue to that. Yeah, I was able to partner with Scott Medlin. For those that know him, the 10 Code
Yeah.
Mindset. If you don't know him, spend about 30 seconds on LinkedIn and scroll, and you'll see a video of his pop up, because that's just who he is with his marketing and the way he gets his message out. But I remember I was on a walk one day, and he had just put out a book called like the 101 myths about stress busting or something, right? I'm like, I wish I knew more about what to ask before I became a law enforcement officer. What if I call Scott and say, hey, man, why don't we collaborate on a book like 101 questions to ask before you become a law enforcement officer? And so I called him, and he's like, well, I wonder, what the demographics on that would be. And I'm like, the audience really could be everybody from somebody that's in a high school law enforcement class like I took, to somebody that's in a police explorer program, to somebody that's taking criminal justice, to somebody that's interested in law enforcement, or even people that are already in law enforcement, because the way that we structured this book, it was structured as career development. So whether you're looking at chapter 1, which was titled The Pathway to Law Enforcement, or you're looking all the way down to maybe chapter 9, what is navigating the digital shift and all this change in technology?
Wow.
Chapter 10, right? Key considerations for law enforcement officers that are approaching retirement. Like, we tried to cover it all in 101 questions. And y'all can laugh because, there's probably 1,000 questions you can ask. But the way this book is written is there's a question that's asked, right? We'll give you some ideas about the chapter. We'll provide 10 questions out of each chapter. You provide your answers. And then I challenge you. Go back in a year or two, reread your question, reread your answer, and tell me if, now that you've been on the job for a couple of years, if you still think the same way, or if now you've got a little bit more knowledge and you would have answered that question differently, and then share that knowledge with others. So, that was kind of the idea of why we wrote it. I've been wanting to do something since the first book I wrote with Nick on mental health and de-escalation. And this, I thought, was a good opportunity to partner with somebody that's very passionate and cares very much about the nobility of law enforcement. And so we got it done, and it released, like I said, it released Sunday. It's on Amazon, or I'd be happy to send you a signed copy on my website at erneststevens.com.
Hey, why I got you guys on it? Can I ask you a couple questions? Because I feel like I value you. I'm listening to Ernie talk about this new book, and I'm thinking about my oldest son, and he's been asking me questions lately about the military, about police work, and it's just like, oh man, and I'm trying to be unemotional and deliver like the facts to him. So like that book is like, hey, read this and then come back and ask me some questions later. But you're just saying that, Ernie, made me think about, like, in this space of people writing a lot of books, a lot of podcasts. I mean, we're almost inundated with that. And I think it's great storytelling and getting perspectives out. But we also know humanity, and we also know the profession that we love very much. And there's a few of us in that profession that aren't interested in pushing a narrative forward that helps others. It's about, their own ego. And it's probably every profession like that. So I guess I want to ask you guys, as you see over the last 5-6 years, as this has really picked up, because you guys are in the space kind of trailblazing before that became well known. What are your thoughts or experiences, interacting with other people that are doing the same thing?
I think it's awesome, and you're right. It's become more and more, and it's not, it's bigger than us. It's about people talking about this profession and how we, looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly in order to get better. And I love the conversations, whether it's with us or others out there that are doing it. But I have seen an increase, and that's a good thing for us. We got to talk about it. We can't just leave things, unsaid. We got to say some things, and I think that's a very good thing for our profession.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off what Andy said. Is we have, as a culture, as a police culture, we have to take accountability. The last 5 years has really been difficult in law enforcement. The recruiting is down to an all-time low. Agencies across the United States are having staffing issues. The retention is ridiculous. But what do we do? We do what Andy did. We take responsibility, and we take accountability for when we do make a mistake, or we find out that we made a mistake, that we own it and say, okay, but what do we learn from this? Where do we go from here? And how do we become better? So it's people like Chief Andy. And if you're a department out there looking for a chief, man, I'm like, I'm throwing it out there, Chief. There's not I
Well,
told you before, like there's not a lot of people I would follow into battle. There's not a lot of people
wow.
I would completely armor up for and go. I'd do it for you any day of the week, my friend.
Wow. Well, thank you, Ernie. That means the world to me. It just is a hard thing to get past, though. It's publicly and all that. But, you know, we'll see what God has in store, right? But it may be that. But I appreciate that, Ernie. That means a lot to me.
That's incredible. All right, so I do have one more question because I'm just curious. I'm a naturally curious person, and I feel like I need some answer to this. You said you found out later that sergeant said, if he's there, arrest him. Did you find out later what was the? And you don't have to get into details, but did you find out later what was that all about?
Yeah, it was about the assumptive information that was given to him by the dispatcher who failed to do her job.
But was
And
that
so he
information
was,
delivered in a personal way to be purposely vindictive towards you, or was it just
yeah.
inept? Or was it ineptitude? We know a lot of inept people, and they didn't mean to do bad, but they like. What was your
I
findings
mean,
of that?
the, well, they really believed that I was intentionally calling 911 and pranking them and, saying these things that, obviously I had some responses to their questions. Uh, one of them, I'll be honest, let me just throw it out there. Where are you at? And I said, or, what's your location? And I'm like, Vince, I said, Vic, where the hell is he here or something? Because he's out of town. And I said, oh, I'm at the Stripes on Main Street. I don't even know if there's a Stripes on Main Street. I just put it out there because I'm going along with this. And okay, we're sending an officer, and I'm like, okay, but I left with a hooker. Okay, yeah, it's dumb, it's stupid, but again, I'm talking to my friend Vic, and he's doubling down, so I'm doubling down, right? And so anyway, so I think they had this picture because they failed to do their job of a person that was intentionally doing this and abusing 911. And so that information was passed on to a very young sergeant, by the way, who was the on duty highest ranking person that night on a Saturday night. And he was like, yeah, he got on the radio. He goes, go ahead and, 10-4 on the 95, which is, hey, if he's there, arrest him. And I think that's what started everything. And it just snowballed from there.
But
Man,
Chad, you got to look at the history of this, right? Sandy's the chief of police. Then they transition him to a city manager, which in my history, every chief of police that has transitioned to city manager, it's like, man, please don't do it. Like of the three that I've known, none of them have ended good. I even talked to Chief Andy. I'm like, hey, Chief, are you sure about this? Because the other two guys I know,
Yeah.
it didn't end too well with them. But then as city manager, you hear about these complaints from city employees, and being who he is, he looks into it and then is being told,
Yeah.
don't look into it. Like,
Yeah.
no, these people deserve fairness and justice like anybody else. Well, don't look into it. Okay, well, now you're fired because you looked into it. Okay, okay, well, now you're going to run for mayor against me? Okay, you sure you want to do that? So I think that's important
Yeah.
for the reader to know. Like, it's more than just a young sergeant that's scared to
Yeah.
make a
Yeah.
decision. It's a history of what
Yeah.
goes
It's
on
bigger.
in
Yeah.
that culture and that agency down there. I saw it firsthand when I was there. I'm not
Yeah. Yeah.
people that know me. Hey, what you see is what you get, and I just call it out, right? So,
I,
a shame
yeah.
this happened, Chief, and I'm sorry it did.
Well, it happens in policing every day. We just don't know about it, and that's the truth. So, but you're
man,
right. Everything is bigger than just that incident. We'll take an officer-involved shooting. You don't talk. We used to just look at the point of when the officer, grabbed his weapon and shot the suspect because he was in fear for his life. We don't live in those days anymore. We have to go back and peel the onion and say, okay, what led to this? And did the officer unnecessarily place himself or herself in a position where they felt they had to use deadly force, and was it preventable? Right. So, but we have to go back and look at that. Same thing with what happened to me. I'm just going back and looking at everything that contributed to what happened that night, and it was a recipe for disaster in the making. And I was the star. Yeah, not in a good
So,
way, but yeah.
so Andy, you've been a chief 3 times. I love your empathetic heart, the way your servant leadership, the way you take care of the community and the guys and the girls. If you had a young officer coming to you who's been on the job 18 months, 2 years, and he or she's asking, "Hey, I'm in a culture that I can't be honest or speak up or do the things that I think need to be. I can't do the job the right way." Like, and obviously that could be multiple different reasons why, but like, what would be a general, you know, pep talk you would give that officer?
You can only control what you have in front of you. You can't control what's going on in the department, what's going on in the city. You can only control what you face every day. So make sure what you can control, you're doing the very best at, yeah, within those parameters, right? So be the best that you can be within that, whatever that is, organization or whatever that culture is. Just still be the best that you can be. Still, you can still make great decisions in the field. You can still look out for community. You can do those things that police officers are supposed to do in spite of what's going on around you. Now, you may be limited, but you can still do some things on your own because you have that capability to do it. So focus on you and what you can control, and be good at it. That's it.
Yeah, you forget like how much police, the power we have, the authority we have, that we hopefully are adding value to everybody in our communities, but man, we can also cause great harm. And you've now seen it from every perspective in this job as a law enforcement officer, now as a victim or a suspect or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just your story is incredible, man, and your willingness to talk about it and push through the shame, embarrassment, discomfort, whatever that is that we all would feel when something like that happened, to put it into a teaching moment. I just think it's we need more of that. We need more people to come forward and say, look, and I didn't handle this the right way, and here's the lessons I learned. And we live in a society and a culture where we love to put the good stuff forward and we hide the bad stuff. We suppress that, especially on social media. But I think we have to have these conversations. So I just appreciate you talking about it.
One thing, as I know we're probably getting ready to wrap, but one thing I remember from Andy's book, Excellence in Policing, and he talks about, the body cameras officers are wearing, is that every time we have an encounter with somebody from the community, it's almost like we're making a commercial, right? We're a representation of our agency. And every time you have that encounter, think about it and then replay that body camera footage and think, did I represent this agency in this community in the best way possible? Did I use legitimacy? Was the process fair? Because if the process was fair, regardless of the outcome, the community member will feel justified. And I've never forgotten that lesson that he wrote in that book. And I've carried that with me for such a long time. And I share it with everybody I get. So with everybody I meet. So if you have an opportunity, get all his damn book. I mean, I'm telling you, get them all 3 of them, man. They're worth it. Like, they're worth their weight in gold. There's not many things that are worth their weight in gold nowadays. His knowledge, his wisdom, his experience, it is. And I would ask you to take advantage of it.
Excellence in Policing is back there somewhere on my bookshelf. I'm going to add Arrested to that. I'm going to add Ernie's new book to that. I want to real quick tell you guys about this because I don't really talk about this, and it's a new journey for me. And we'll end on this unless you guys have something you want to say. But it's getting to what Ernie said about the power of showing up and like, what is the why? Simon Sinek talks about this. What is the why? Why do we do this job? And if you don't have it, man, to me, it's like serving without any sort of spiritual guidance. You're just one bad day away from being corrupted, I think. So, and I say that because like I'm policing now in a university. I've got all the municipal experience under my belt, been a detective, blase blah. I've done that. And I show up down to university and I still have some people like, hey, like, and I'm really positive. I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to be that light. And it's led to some conversations like, hey man, like, what about you get back on the job and bigger agency, do more things? And it's like, absolutely not. I am where I'm supposed to be because I know if I go somewhere else, especially municipality, and you guys know this well, you can have the best of intentions, but it gets so fast paced. It gets so caught up. If I just want to show up and smile and wish people well and then protect them when something bad goes down, that's not an environment to do that in. Where the university, it's less about enforcement, more about education, building relationships, coaching, mentor, providing that light in dark times. And it's like, it's so amazing. And I tell that to any police officer. I used to kind of judge university policing as a cop. I didn't know anybody that did it. I was, a detective undercover. So like, university, like maybe that's for the cops that just, don't want to do this kind of stuff. And no, that was just immature and misguided. So like whatever that passion is for a young cop out there, what is your why? If your why is to change people's hearts and win people's minds, that's fine. Find an agency to let you do that. If your why is to go arrest bad guys, that's awesome. Go work for a big city and do that. Find that why and then get in that right agency, but stop trying to push the round peg in the square hole. I can speak from experience. It doesn't end well. And I appreciate maybe I will share that. Thanks, Ernie. I wasn't planning on sharing that, but I just think that's another piece of advice for you.
Well, you're lifelong.
Chad, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're a lifelong student in law enforcement and always should be. If you've picked this career, to be your pathway to retirement, you need to be a lifelong, open-minded, not fixed-minded, open-minded, growth-minded individual. So I'm glad that we've got good examples out there of people that are in this space and doing this kind of work. So again, I appreciate it.
Touche, brother.
Remember when we all went through the interview process and they asked us, why do you want to be a police officer? And most of us answered, well, we want to help people. That was, basically most people's answers, are basically that. Well, that's what you do. You're out there to help people. That's it. Don't forget that.
Yeah, right,
we become something different, but don't forget, you signed up for this to help people. So help people. But you got to think about what you're doing.
And you know what? If real quick, I know we're going to probably keep going with Andy. And Ernie, I want to get your feedback. The officer wellness component to what Andy just said. If you think about all of the days we swore, I still have my swearing in picture, hand is raised. My wife is holding the Bible. I mean, the smile, I'm grinning, cheesing from ear to ear. And then you look at, and everybody I think is in that boat. And then you look at somebody 7, 8, 10 years, 15 years on the job, and they got the permanent, frown and the low of energy. And I have so much compassion for them. But I think about, like, how did that happen? And why is it happening to so many? And I think it's that missing component of officer wellness is like, I didn't need this to start the job. So why do I need it now? And it's like, that's exactly why you need it in this tough job. Highly dynamic. We're dealing with people on their worst days. We're seeing negative, traumatic things. Like, you have to be proactive with that wellness. So you're not that guy who was like, yeah, I love being a cop. And then 10 years later, everybody's like wondering, why is he a cop? It's like, man, I want to know that too. And you've got to get that wellness part to find that passion, that love, and that why back.
Yeah, I'll say this. I remember when I came out, my FTOs, my field training officers, each had like 30 years on at the time. And these were some crusty dudes, man. Like, I wasn't allowed to even talk to them. Like, I just had to listen. I made the mistake one morning at breakfast to reach over and touch their newspaper because I wanted to look at the sports section. Oh, huge mistake. Yeah.
That was the old school. Yeah, you're right, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, I thought I was going to
learn everything on your own.
I thought I was going to have to walk back to the substation. But to say all that, to say we've come a long way in policing to understand the importance of wellness, but it's also something that you must seek for because the department's not going to do it for you, right? Look at the way they recruit. Look at the pamphlet, SWAT, K9, everybody on the cover. This is who you can become, but they don't show you that picture of another officer with their arm around you saying, I'm sorry you had to go through this. We're going to get through this together. That's not who they're recruiting for. But 99% of the things we deal with is very traumatic and could use a wellness component. So stop trying to change the world, learn how to change yourself, and become better for your community.
Woo! Perfect. Yes. That's a good way to end this. We can't top that.
Yeah. My brothers, thank you, man. I hope this helps one person. Andy, I hope this book and this story can illuminate some people's perspectives. Maybe some managers, elected officials, and local communities can read this and say, man, am I making this about me and not about we? And I think that's a very easy thing to do. And we come into it. It's about we. And then all of a sudden, 5, 6, 7, whatever, a couple election cycles, it's about me. And it's like, we got to get back to it's about we, not me. And I think your story is going to do that, man. I really appreciate it.
Man.
But I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
All right, brothers. Be well. Have a good weekend.
Y'all take care.
See you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a part of this community. We have to stick together and encourage each other. It's through the empowerment and support of one another that we can help each other overcome whatever season we're in, weather the storms. please go to my website, motivate-change.com, and there you can buy the book, but you can also see some of the other coaching services, speaking services, and other things that we offer to really help people develop into the best people that we can be. Thank you for being a part of this community. Together we can do it.